Hey, what's up guys? Dave here from CNC3D. So today we're going to be talking about the new release to our CNC3D Commander software. So if you go into the About button at the top here in Commander, so the current version that we are talking about today here is version 1.1 beta build 283. So if you're watching this video and your build is greater than 283 or is 283, the great news is you already have all of the features that we're going to be talking about. So if you did want to do a catch up on it and just have a look, we're going to cover some of the new changes that we've put in this version. So we'll close out of here. Now, the first thing that you'll notice before we actually go and connect up to our controller, we're going to go into the settings button at the top here. And you'll notice that there is a tick box in here that says use native serial library, and that will be unticked. So I've basically created my own serial method that communicates directly with serial COM ports. So this relates to USB connections or Bluetooth connections to your controller. So definitely give this a try. If you have any issues with this being unticked, then you can look at ticking this box. But one of the main reasons why I've actually implemented our own serial library in there is a recent Windows 10 update or Windows 11 update seems to be affecting some users that are communicating to their controller via USB or Bluetooth. So definitely go through and leave this unticked, give it a try. If you do experience any issues, you can always revert back to the old method. Hopefully this new method that I'm doing things with will prevent some of the issues some users have experienced with regards to freezing of Commander while in the middle of a job due to USB interference. These issues should now be resolved by using the non-native serial library. So definitely worthwhile giving it a try. So we'll close out of here. And the next thing you'll notice is if you are a COM port user, so you're on USB or Bluetooth, you can see that we actually have a definition now of all of your actual COM ports. So I will actually pull this data just to try to help you figure out exactly which COM port your controller will be connected to. So in the case of this, we do have our Nighthawk controller on COM5 via USB, and we're going to go ahead and connect. So you'll notice that the very first thing that's popped up here is it says a firmware update is available for your Nighthawk CNC controller. So we have made some changes to our actual Nighthawk, and we have created an automated firmware update process. So I would highly recommend going and installing this update. This particular update feature will work on USB and it will work on Wi-Fi, but unfortunately it will not work on Bluetooth. So you will just need to actually connect up via USB or set up your Wi-Fi in order to get the latest firmware. So we're going to say yes to this. Now you'll notice another window will pop up at this point in time asking you whether or not you have a fourth axis. So just to give you a little bit of information on this, we set up dual axis homing within our Nighthawk controller, and we needed two separate versions of firmware. Now, unfortunately, at the time, it was a bit of an oversight on my part, and I actually forgot to put something in to delineate between those two versions. So I actually don't know which firmware your Nighthawk has. All I know from looking at the top here in the background, you have a Nighthawk CNC 2.1. So there's a couple of questions here. So the first one is, do you have a fourth axis? So do you have anything that looks like this rotary attachment here? So in the case of this particular Nighthawk controller, no, we don't. So I don't have a fourth axis. Now the next question is, does your Nighthawk have anything connected to the A-limit port? So see a photo here where you can see that we have a little bridge across this connection here. So this indicates that this Nighthawk is more than likely a dual axis homing Nighthawk. Now you may have a little bridge across here, or you may also have some wires in this port. If you either have a bridge across here or some wires into this port, then you probably have dual axis firmware. Now another easy way to tell is, did you receive your Nighthawk or your CNC3D machine after March 2022? So this was the point where we started rolling out the dual axis homing firmware. So if you received your Nighthawk before this date, then definitely click no here. If you received it after March 2022 and you definitely have something in this bridge, then definitely select yes here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to go through and install this firmware. If you're not sure if the options that you've chosen are correct, then you can choose to go back to the first question. Alternatively, you can go through the firmware installation process. So let's just go install firmware update. And you can see that it's disconnected in the background from our controller and it's launched our Nighthawk CNC update tool. So we are connected via USB. So let's just hit start on here now. And we'll wait for it to communicate with the Nighthawk. And please wait until this process completes. Make sure not to power off your Nighthawk at this point in time. Just let it go through and install the latest version of the firmware. Okay, that's almost done. And perfect. So that has now completed. So what we want to do now is we basically want to go through and turn the Nighthawk off for around 5 seconds just to give it a chance to reset, and then we'll turn it back on again. I've just done that while we've been talking. So we're good to go ahead and connect. Now, if you take a look at the top here, you can see that it says connected Nighthawk CNC 2.2. So we definitely do have the latest version of the Nighthawk here. And if you take a look under here, you'll now see that we have some values appearing in this little readout section here. So G54 and G90. So this is some additional reporting information that we've put into this version of the Nighthawk firmware for users who weren't sure what job offset they were in. So, by the way, you can click on these little things here in order to tell you exactly what each one actually means. So this one will tell you which job offset you are actually in, and this one will tell you which actual positioning system you are in between absolute or incremental. So you can click on any one of these little letters here and it will give you a definition of exactly which movement positioning type you are in. And so that should help a lot of users out. Now, let's say you've just done this firmware update and you're going to go ahead and start to use your machine. So you've probably just connected to your Nighthawk for the start of the day, so you probably haven't actually homed your Nighthawk. So if that's the case, you need to be very careful to make sure we have chosen the correct firmware. The best thing that you can do is basically hover over the home machine button, hit home machine, and then hit the emergency stop button if you notice something is not right. Now, if you have loaded the wrong firmware onto your Nighthawk, then you'll notice that on the y-axis, one side will move, the other side will not. If that happens, then you will need to actually power off your Nighthawk and basically re-square your gantry and then turn the Nighthawk back on, and we can show you how to actually go through and fix this. Now, if you're not sure on how to re-square your gantry, then you can always click on the help button here within Commander, and you can go into user guides. And for example, this particular machine, as you can see at the top, is a QB2. So we're going to click on the QB2 user manual. Now, this will launch the QB2 user manual. As you can see so page 18 is here. So from page 19 is the QB2 CNC maintenance guide. You can actually go through here, and this section from page 19 covers about squaring your gantry. So you can follow this procedure on here, which should make things a little bit easier. Now, we have modified these manuals to include some rail and ball screw maintenance as well. So definitely take a look at that new section there. And the more often that you follow through this procedure and follow through the maintenance guide, the better your machine will always perform. So we have updated in this new release the UCarve manual, Queen Bee manual, and QB2 manual. So if you'd like to revisit those manuals for the type of machine you have, then definitely go ahead and do that. So let's just close out of here. So now let's say that you have re-squared your gantry because something has gone wrong. You've now powered your Nighthawk back up again. What you want to do is you want to pick some different firmware. So the easiest way to do that is if you go back into the help button here and you go into the troubleshooting tools section, you'll see that we have a CNC3D ESP32 firmware tool. So we're going to click on this now, Actually, one thing I forgot to do, we do quickly need to disconnect from our controller and then go into the help menu and then go into CNC3D ESP32FW tool. That will launch our tool. Now, we need to choose the correct COM port for our machine. Now, this particular tool, it only works on USB. It's a very stable recovery point for your controller. So please connect up your Nighthawk via USB if you previously just updated the firmware via Wi-Fi. Definitely connect it up via USB and then follow through this process. Now, if you click on the three dots here, if we go into the C drive and then we go into the CNC3D Commander folder that you should have, you'll see that there are a few different bin files in here. Now, the bin files that relate specifically to your controller, there are two different ones. You have this NHFW4A and an NHFWDA. Now, the 4A version is the 4-axis version, and the DA version is the dual-axis homing version. So if you know that it's installed the dual-axis homing version when you first went through the update process, then definitely choose the 4A option. So we can go ahead and do that now, and then we can just hit start in here, and it will be a similar process for you to actually load this. So we'll just wait for this to go. And this will be the easiest way for you to actually recover your controller in the event that you may have loaded the incorrect firmware on there. You can use this as many times as you like. If you still find that you have the same issue after choosing, say, this NHFW4A file, then you can try the DA file afterwards as well. There's nothing wrong with it. You just need to be careful if you're jogging your machine. Make sure not to jog it too far so that you don't skew your gantry and cause potential issues. Now, it's a bit unfortunate that we've had to go through this process, but the good news is that any future updates to our Nighthawk controller firmware will automatically know exactly which firmware you have installed and give you the exact right version. So that should be a really handy feature for you guys and hopefully will help you out. Now, some of the new features that we've had added into this version of Commander, you'll notice there's this yellow gold tools button at the top here. So if we click on this button, you'll see that we've created a full Endmill tool management system, which is customizable. And so the way that it works is we basically have, as a top level, you've got a toolbox. And then within the toolbox, you can have a tool set. And then within a tool set, you can have an individual tool. Now, we have added our CNC3D TurboCut Endmill range into here just to make things easier for our users. So you've got a direct link. You can click on any one of these links and it will take you directly through to our website for our TurboCut Endmill range. And it has, obviously, each one of these, all of your feeds and speeds that you may actually want. So let's say, for example, you have tools from a different tool vendor or different tool manufacturer. Well, you can click on New Toolbox, and then you can choose to create one. So let's make a new toolbox. We'll call it Other Guy's Bits. And the vendor is Other Guy. And vendor URL, www.otherguy.com. And you can put their phone number in here if you want to be able to contact them easily. Some bits from the Other Guy. And now you can create your toolbox. So you'll notice that you've got Other Guy's Bits now appearing on the left-hand side here. Now, the first thing you can do is add a new tool set to this toolbox. So click on New Tool Set. We can give this a name. Let's say that the type of cutter you're using is a 2F straight cut. And then you've got a tool set URL. So you can put a direct link in here to otherguysbits.com/2F straight. And you can save that in there to directly take you to that landing page if you want to. Now, it isn't mandatory to fill in these fields, but you do need to specify a tool set name as a minimum. So let's say we're happy with this. Let's just go create tool set. And then now you can very easily create your own tool. So if you click on New Tool, you can choose the type of cutter that you are looking to create the library for. So we've covered the most common types here, and we've covered the additional or specific information to those cutters to make it easy. So for example, with this tapered ball nose, or tapered BN as we've called it for short here, you can see there are 3 variables extra that it requires over a standard cutter. So let's choose tapered BN and go to create new. Now you've got your description at the top. So this could be 0.5 mil tapered BN. And you can choose to put a direct link to this type of cutter in here if you have one. And then you can choose your units of measure, so millimeters per minute, your rate units in millimeters. You can enter in your feed rate, so we can go 4,000. You can just tab through these as well. It makes it a bit easier. Plunge rate, we can put in there, say 300. Now you need to enter in your A angle and basically populate this data with the values that either your manufacturer recommends or the values that you find work best for your machine. And when you're done, you can obviously put notes in here if you want to, but you don't have to do that. Then you can just hit save. And as you can see, it's added it into the database here. Now, if you close out of here and go back in there, it will automatically save your data. So you can see that there's our tool that we created with the values that we've put in there. Now, you will notice all of these are customizable except for the description. You cannot change the description. Once you create a particular tool or a tool set or a toolbox, that will be locked into place within the database. So just keep that in mind, that if you do enter in the wrong description name, you may need to delete this tool and then basically recreate it again. So what you will notice is it is not possible for you to actually edit a lot of the functions on the CNC3D TurboCut database, and that is because we have left this open for, well, obviously for ourselves, but for other tool vendors, if they wish to give us a tool library that we can create as a controlled system for them to be able to add into Commander as well. But what you can do if you're using our CNC3D TurboCut Endmills is you can choose a particular Endmill in here, and you can edit the basic functions of the actual tool if you want to. Like, for example, the spindle RPM, the step over, etc. Those values can in fact be changed. So basically, as I've said, once you are done doing what you're doing, as soon as you hit close, it will save that database, and then you're good to go. Now, one of the other new features that we've put into Commander is if you go into the Create button at the top here, you'll see that we have extended this button here to include pen and vinyl plotting. So we have recently added a pen and a vinyl drag knife cutter into our range. So if you click on this SVG to laser function here, let me just bring this in view. And so basically what you can do is you can choose to load an SVG file into here. And then you can choose between creating G-code for laser or plasma, or for pen plotting / vinyl cutting. And we do give you some basic advice on the best way for you to get the best results. Now, if you guys don't have a pen plotter or a vinyl cutter, we do stock them on our 3D store at this point in time. Pending stock availability, of course. The pen plotters have been extremely popular in the last week since we've added them. So definitely look at getting onto these links, and they will take you to our website. Now, if you take a look here, you've obviously got your basic information that you require to do the particular G-code setup for this. So, for example, the press height. This one's a bit of an unusual one, but it was required to put in there. So we have put these handy little breakouts throughout the Commander software, which gives you a definition of what something means. So in the case of press height, if we click on here, so this is an additional plunge value which is added to the Z. So once you zero on the surface of your material with the tip of your pen or your vinyl plotter, you can then add a particular Z plunge that occurs after traveling, which will go to, say for example, between one shape or another, and it will add that bit of depth on there just to act as like a pen press, or just to get the actual vinyl cutter to go into the material. So basic information like this with these handy little breakouts, it just gives you a bit of information just so you get the best success. And of course, this pro tip here is actually quite important. Make sure your spindle is beautifully trammed, and make sure that your bed has been surfaced recently for absolute best results with the pen plotter or the vinyl cutter. Not doing so may mean you might damage your job or potentially your cutter or pen. So definitely surface that bed, tram your spindle, and then give it a go. Now, basically, we have tried our best to suit all types of SVGs. This doesn't always work, so there is a little bit of a trick that we have come up with to give you good success with using this tool. So if you load an SVG file into here, so let's see if we can find one. We've got this circle square. And if we try to save this file, I already know this particular SVG will work, but we'll just save it. If you get a confirmation here, then that's a really good sign. So that means that it has been successful. But let's say, for example, if we go into Browse, and I'm going to pick something that I know probably won't work well, so we'll go Sharp Logo Outline. And then if you try to save this particular file now, so we'll save it to desktop. Okay, that's also worked as well. So if we choose a different file out of here, we'll just see if we can find one. All right, uCarve logo, and save for pen plot on the desktop. Okay, so an error occurred when trying to process this SVG file. This is very common when the SVG file's boundaries are larger than the SVG itself. So a bit of a trick for you is to use a free program called Inkscape. It can create SVG files for you, but it can also edit the SVG files as well. So I'm just going to quickly launch Inkscape over here, just to show you how to actually work around this. And we're just going to choose, all right, so we're going to have to browse for our file. So as you can see, we've got our SVG file loaded into here. Now, if you want to export it so that it will work effectively, we need to go into File and then go into Document Properties. And then in this Document Properties, you need to basically tell it that there is no actual boundary, that the contents is basically, so if you click on this resize to content, that will actually resize and get rid of a separate outer boundary for the actual job. Once that's done, you can choose to close out of this document properties window. You can then go into File and then go to Save As. And you want to choose, so we'll save on the desktop, you want to choose this optimized SVG and just hit save. Now it'll open up this other window here. If there is anything ticked in any of these boxes, please untick anything in here and then hit OK. And then now we should have that file updated. So let's just close out of Inkscape. And let's now try to load, if we go to our desktop where we saved it, we've got our Twitter logo. And then now we can save for pen plot or vinyl cut. And you'll see that it has now been successful. So I will be working on trying to work with different types of SVG files. At this point in time, I've kept the logic very simple on my end with how I choose to parse these files. So hopefully in the next release, we can improve this. But as a workaround for now, you may as well leverage some of the free tools that Commander does have and enjoy obviously working with your new pen plotter or your vinyl cutter. So we'll just close out of here. Now, look, this pretty much covers all the changes that we have pushed through to this version of our CNC3D Commander software. The most important thing is just be aware of that new automated firmware update system that's been pushed through for our Nighthawk controllers. And just be wary about how you go about choosing the right firmware for your controller. And obviously remembering that we do have that recovery point within the help menu here. You can launch this tool and basically put a different version of firmware on there if you wish. So in the update, it will automatically pull the latest version of the firmware. So those files should be updated and ready to go for you. So look, thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I hope it's been informative for you, and happy building. Thanks for the support.